Newcastle 2, Spurs 1. We'll get into it right after the sponsor. Before you go on any trips away this year, you absolutely need to get this app. I travel all the time, and multiple times, me and the lads have been stung with massive phone bills. You think you're texting on the hotel Wi-Fi, before you know it, you get the phone bill. What was I doing? And it's not just that. Just getting signal when you're away is an absolute nightmare. And this is why I use Saily for just the price of a coffee. Saily will keep you connected wherever you are, so you don't have to hop from hotel Wi-Fi to restaurant Wi-Fi. You're literally going to have the best connection no matter where you are. And it's cheap, so you're not going to get that big phone bill. Honestly, it's a no-brainer. All you have to do is click the link in the description below, install your eSIM, and when you land, boom, you're in business. And every time I've used it, I've had a better connection in the hotel Wi-Fi. I can watch live streams. I can download movies. It's brilliant. When I went to Vegas, this was an absolute lifesaver. And the best bit is there's a 15% discount when you use my link in the description below. Even if you're not traveling till later in the year, I know you might forget. So do it now because this will come in handy. Just go to saily.com/kickoff and you can get 15% off. Do it now. Don't wait until you land and then you regret not doing it in advance because this is a game changer. Newcastle have finally won an away game, and it feels like it's been 84 years on the Titanic. And I am so relieved because I really was starting to worry, like, where the hell is this season going? And it's given us a lifeline. And what was really weird is obviously I've been heavily critical of Eddie Howe, of the players, and rightly so. And I don't take a word of it back. But after the match, I'm pretty pissed. I'm with the lads, and I'm like, looking at my phone, and I'm getting Newcastle fans tweeting me going, "Ha, see? Shows what you know, eh? Bet you're miserable now." And I'm like, am I really pissed? Or do they think I'm like wanting Newcastle to lose? And I realize that like for some people in life, it's about being right about everything. But I just want to make this perfectly clear for anyone who doesn't understand this. I want to be wrong so badly. I want Eddie Howe to turn this around, win every game at the end of the season, make me look like a complete mug. And I think smart people probably know that, but just to make this abundantly clear for any challenged people out there, I am delighted when we win a game. However, for anyone acting like this one game proves everything I've said wrong about the entire season, I'd like you to go back to the PSG game, look at how well Newcastle performed in that game and how many, where's the Eddie Howe outlot now? You remember that? And look at the run we went on after that game. One game does not make a season and one game does not prove anything I've said wrong. Especially when that game is against that Spurs side. And look, I don't want to take anything away from Newcastle, but when you play a team that bad, you've got to have a sensible head on it. Because I know the Newcastle fan channels, we were amazing. Oh, look at how well this player played. Look how well that other player played. And then at the end of the video, there'll be a tiny little like, well, Spurs weren't the best weather. And then we'll just forget about that. I'm not going to do that because I have to tell the truth, man. And as much as I love Newcastle, I am a person who tries to put logic before emotion as best as I can. And I think that's why I've gone first in saying Eddie needs to go. Because it's the emotional attachment to Eddie that's keeping him in the job, in my opinion. And we have to acknowledge we've struggled against Wolves and Burnley a lot more than that Spurs side. Spurs were terrible. They look like the worst side I've seen all season. By a mile. You know, you see other teams like West Ham, you know, they were struggling badly earlier this season. They're showing a bit of fight now. Like, Spurs showed nothing. Even the goal they scored was shit. Not only do they not look like a big six side, they don't even look like a fucking Premier League side at the minute. There was no fight. There was no creativity. There was no organisation. I've never seen us have that much time and space on the ball, aside from maybe when we played PSV in the Champions League. They made it so easy for us in their backyard as well. I was watching like, is this a home game? Like, even at home, Newcastle don't have it that easy. And you think to yourself, like, this is a Champions League finalist club, right? They're not that long ago, right? Yes, it was a few years now, but the fall is staggering. If they don't sack him now, they could go down. I mean, they really could, because West Ham and Forest, there's something there. Yeah, they're not great. They're bad, but there's some spirit. There's a hint of quality here and there. I don't see anything in this Spurs side right now. And to be fair, they had a lot of injuries. And what's really weird is I'm looking at the stats from the game, and the way I remember the game is like, yeah, it was fairly comfortable. But like, actually, they had like 4 shots on target to our 5. We had 20 to their 16. Possession, 52-48. We weren't really that much better than them on the stats. But Spurs were so bad. I just don't see a way out of this unless they get rid of Thomas Frank and they bring someone who's got a bit of dynamism in him. Because that guy could send a glass eye to sleep. And lo and behold, as I'm making this video, they've only gone and sacked him. And I don't blame them. I think it's the right call. Will it save that season? Who knows? But it's going to give them a chance. Because with Thomas Frank in charge, I don't think they did have one. I think they were going down, and this was their last hope. As for the lineup, look, Newcastle was started with Kieran Trippier, the 4th game in 10 days for a 35-year-old. And look, credit to him, I thought he was way better in this game. But like, I don't know how much longer we can put that kind of pressure on a player of that age just to keep playing it over and over and over again. And Lewis Miley's injury seems to have knocked him out for a little longer than what we expected. Classic Newcastle. Dan Burn starting at left back, which was another worry. I don't think that's his best position. Bruno Guimaraes back from injury and yet gets injured again at the end of the game. We're not really good at managing injuries. I mean, we're fucking terrible at it, let's be honest. I was gutted to see Anthony Gordon starting up front again. I think we know long term that is not the answer. It's not the solution. And look, you could feel the impact that had on the game from the get-go because Anthony Elanga started like a house on fire, to be fair to the kid. He whips this ball in for a corner, and it was one of a few crosses he put in the first half that was really dangerous. No one took advantage. And this is what happens when you're playing a short little striker like Anthony Gordon, and your main way to score goals in the game is crossing the ball in. It was baffling. But look, on the bright side, Elanga really had an impact early on in the game. Another player who had an impact was Joe Willock. Now, for me, Joe Willock is a funny player because I think his all-round game isn't amazing. I think there's a lot he could work on. But as an attacking threat in midfield, he actually does offer a lot. He has this shot on the edge of the box here, which a thing that Newcastle just never fucking do for some reason. And you see here just how close it was to the post. I mean, it was a fucking decent effort. And we had Spurs on the back foot immediately, which is so frustrating when you haven't got a focal point, because it's having a focal point in those kind of games where you have the possession, where you're not on the counter-attack, but you're actually on the front foot, where you need that finishing touch. Then Elanga gets into space on the right-hand side here. You've got 2 runners in the middle, but again, just like against Liverpool, you're not going to be able to cross it high. He tried a few of those, it wasn't working, so he goes low here for Harvey Barnes. And what's really funny is Harvey Barnes tries the Woltemade flick that he scored with against Brighton, and it doesn't come off from, look, it was a decent effort, but I was just getting frustrated, as you can imagine, at this point, thinking like, we got all this attacking play, and yet we're just not capitalising on it yet. And look, I have to highlight some of the Spurs play. Honestly, it was shambolic. And just take a look at this for a start, right? Like, I think they're trying to go man to man, but like, look at how far away they are from each man. And like, what's he doing? I don't fucking know. One of the things that I criticise Newcastle for sometimes is just a lack of movement. Like, when a player receives the ball, no one moves for it. I have to give credit here to Jacob Ramsey, who sees Bruno receiving the ball here and immediately darts into space. Bruno lays it off with one-touch football, and then Ramsey immediately sends the ball in behind to Joe Willock. Fucking beautiful, but also terrible from Spurs. Willock's in the box here. He does a really nice turn, then he pretends to go back the other way, then he comes back again onto his right foot, buries it. Oh my God. Fucking hell, man. That's what I'm talking about. But oh, look. His hand was offside. So glad we ruled out that goal because someone's hand was offside. Fuck me, man, lads. Like, is this what football's becoming? They should just take it from the feet. Like, if my feet are in line, because I score with me foot here, or the part of the body that if you score with your head and your head's offside, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't fucking matter that his hand was offside. Elanga rolls the ball into Joe Willock here, who whips a lovely cross into the back post. Malik Chow leaps like a salmon, son, heads it down into the path of the keeper spills it, and Malik Chow taps it in for 1-0. Thoroughly deserved. Now, on the one hand, at half-time, you're like, we've been the better side, we're 1-0 up, we're laughing, brilliant. But with Newcastle, you also have to understand the kind of players we've got in that we do tend to sit back at 1-0 and invite pressure and collapse, let's be honest. And Anthony Gordon, at that point, had offered nothing, right? He'd ran around, put pressure on the defenders, but he hadn't offered anything in an attacking sense. So I'm like, just bring Woltemade on, man. We need to put this lot to the sword. Yes, it's 1-0, great. It could be 4-0. The great passing from Elanga, the ball's into the box. We could have made so much more of that. And too often at Newcastle, we're just happy with 1-0. And I remember a quote from Alex Ferguson where he hammered the Man United players if they didn't go for more than one goal when they were 1-0 up. The aggression that we're lacking there, it does worry me. And look, we did sit back. We did come out flatter. And Spurs did come back into the game in the second half. And I just thought we allowed it. And people can complain, oh, oh, you're being negative, we won the game, man. It's like, I want us to be better, even if we win. And if you haven't got any ambition, then fuck off, because this isn't going to be good enough for some other teams. You got to strike while the iron's hot. So Spurs come out and have a go at us. Nick Pope saves this shot from distance, but it goes out for a corner. Corner comes in. Newcastle, as you can see, a lot of our players are closer to the near post than the back post, and we get dominated at the back post here. I mean, this was just not great. Head goes cross goal. Archie Gray taps it in, and I'm just like, this is what you get. This is what you fucking get when you don't have a player to capitalise on all of that possession, on all of that attacking play, and you're playing not to lose and playing with a striker who his best attribute is running around. It's not finishing. Got one goal in 12 months from open play in the Premier League, and that was the result of it. And I just felt like gutted, because this was there for the taking at that point, and I was fucking miserable at that point, I swear down, because in previous games we have bottled it, the heads have dropped when we've conceded an equaliser, and usually that means we're going to lose the game. And this is where I've got to give Eddie Howe and the players credit, because as shit as Spurs were in the first half, and as easy as it was, this was a test now. You're away from home. We're terrible away from home. We've only won twice before this game all fucking season away from home. One of those was against Burnley. Now we're going to find out, are you really playing for this manager? And the answer was yes. Now, that doesn't mean they've played for the manager all season, but it was a positive sign for their relationship between the players and the manager, because at that point, they could have just thrown him under the bus, really. And Anthony Gordon, of all people, he offered nout in this game. But the people are going to say because he got the assist, like, oh, Anthony Gordon was the right call. That's the sort of level of analysis we've got within the Newcastle community sometimes. He really didn't have much of an impact in this game at all, other than putting pressure on their defenders. But this was good, and I'm going to give him credit where it's due. It was a lovely flick in, and perfectly positioned was Jacob Ramsey. Again, all that space we were getting in that penalty box, we could have taken advantage of it well before now. And Jacob Ramsey just rolls it right into the bottom corner. Beautiful goal. I'm delighted for the kid, because let's be honest here, it's been hard enough for him to get a fucking start. We paid 40 million for him, barely fucking started a game for God knows how long, but he's shown flashes lately. Not enough, nowhere near enough, but he's shown flashes of, all right, that's what we signed you for. And I actually thought we'd get a lot more of this from him when we signed him, and hopefully this spurs him on now, no pun intended, to get more goals like this, because we've seen at Villa, he can be an attacking threat. The fans went mental, and you have to think, they've only had 3 away wins all season now after this. Travelling the length of the country, they deserve something to smile about. Just the emotion on Jacob Ramsey's face here, I was like, all right, that's what we want to see. You know, we want to see how much it means to you. And yeah, things could have been better so far this season, but like, that tells me this has been bothering him. The fact that it hasn't gone as well as it could have done. And I want to see that. I want to see your fucking emotion. Now, I'll be honest, we did get away with it a bit in this game, because there was one opportunity Spurs had in this scramble here that I thought anyone decent scores there, or at least works the keeper. Van de Ven has a pop from here after it bounces to him. They had an overhead kick that was blocked that could have gone in as well. And he skies it, and I just thought, we've got away with it. Thank God. But that's what happens when you don't put your chances away. We were living dangerously, and we could have made life easier for ourselves. But credit to the lads, I think we deserved the win. They ran hard. They played some nice football at times. Yes, Spurs made it as easy as possible for us, but I'll fucking take it. And there were a few things that bothered me, and I'm going to cover them. And I don't care if people think I'm being negative. Again, I've got standards, I've got ambition, and I want to see us doing everything right, not just some of it right. That worked this time and was enough to get the win this time. Bruno getting injured is a real worry. I think we need to manage his minutes big time. He is so crucial for us. If he's out now for a while, despite this win, that could be enough to fuck the whole season up now. And it was already pretty fucked. But like, any hope we've got of getting European football could go right out the window if he's out. And one thing that concerned me is Tonali coming off the bench. There's a lot of talk right now about him going to a Man United or any of these clubs, Arsenal. He's playing like it. You're coming off the bench, and the way he was chasing the ball around, which normally he is quite good at, that's the only thing he's really good at, really. If I'm honest, this season, it's not been great. The fire wasn't there, in my opinion, especially if you're coming off the bench. Normally, you're 10 times more energized than everyone else who's been slogging their guts out for an hour, and he just didn't look at it. And I'm of the opinion, if he doesn't want to stay, get the biggest price for him, wish him well, see you later. It ain't going to be like the Alexander Isak thing. We can't do that, especially when Tonali's a good player. When he's at his best, he's fucking really good. But this season, he's been nowhere near that. And if you can get a good fee for him, then fuck it off and go and, I mean, get Elliot Anderson if you can. I don't know if we'll be able to compete with Man City or someone like that. But if we can get a massive fee for Tonali and just give them straight to Anderson, I would do that in a heartbeat. Because I think Anderson's a better footballer than him, especially on the ball, which is something we've neglected too too often in this squad. Which brings me on to the striker situation, because this has been bothering me all season. With all that space we had in this game, with all the balls in from Elanga, I was just like, if not now, then when? This is a Woltemade game. Whipping balls in Anthony Gordon, who's never going to get on the end of them. What are we doing here? Yes, we got away with it. That doesn't mean it worked. That doesn't mean it was right. Gordon got an assist. It was the right call. No. We could have buried this slot. And if you can't see that, then I can't help you, man. Anthony Gordon has 1 goal from open play in the last year. Don't tell me for a second that he is a better striker than Nick Woltemade. He is not even close to his talent level. And I know Woltemade has been through a rough patch lately, but if you actually look at their ability, their skill level, we're going to look back on this in years to come. When Nick Woltemade has proven his level at probably another club, unfortunately, we're going to reminisce. Remember when Anthony Gordon was playing ahead of him as striker? We're going to laugh about this. And you know why he was picked ahead of Woltemade? This says everything about Eddie Howe as a manager, in my opinion. Eddie Howe picked this striker in this game on his ability to defend, not what he can offer with the ball. Imagine telling managers of the past, like, one day, managers in the future will be picking strikers on their ability to defend from the front and not their ability to actually put the ball in the net. That blows my mind, that. But I think that that's the level of, like, the negativity that Eddie approaches games with and the fear that he approaches games with. And given the amount of space Spurs gave us, which is something Woltemade has struggled with when teams do play a low block or we don't give him the service and he's completely isolated, he could have fucking killed it in this game. And I just don't understand, Eddie. Like, I really don't. You've signed this kid for £63 million, a record for the club. You watched him, I'm assuming, it doesn't look like it is, you have, but the way you're playing him for the team, but you watched him for Stuttgart, you watch him for Germany, and instead of learning from that and going, all right, we're going to need to do a few things to get the best out of him, to replicate what he's been able to do when he's had success, you play him in a completely different way. Or not at all. And then when it doesn't work, you're like, well, that's not going to work. Chuck Anthony Gordon in again, which you already know does not work in the long run. Now, this is Nick Woltemade playing for Stuttgart last year, and as you can see, he's got a man up top with him, right? Usually for Stuttgart, you'd either have another striker up with him or you'd have 2 number 10s playing around him, in behind him. He'd have a lot of support. You see Nick pointing where he wants the ball, making the run in behind as his man slips him in. Takes it round the keeper, goal. And again in the same game, this ball's getting threaded through into Nick Woltemade, but he's got a man up top with him. He's got someone there to take the attention of the defenders to help him get a bit of fucking breathing space, right? Instead of these 3 being just on Nick, which is what happens in the Premier League, he's got a little bit of help, a little bit of support. That ball flew into Nick's feet, by the way. Takes the touch, and he's in behind. Goal. Lovely toe poke, by the way. That people sucking Nakatike off for doing that against us. He can do it as well when you give him the fucking service. And that ball through the centre of the park is another thing we hardly ever do. We never play through the middle. It's all out wide, crosses in, which again, yes, I think Nick can become a better header of the ball and he can be that focal point. And he's already headed the ball in the back of the net against Arsenal, hardest team to fucking score a header against, arguably. But it is something he needs to work on. But we're not playing it through the middle like that and picking out his runs. The amount of times Nick's making runs like that and is just ignored, it's fucking criminal. So here's Nick in another game, right? The ball's rolled into him on the edge of the box, shields the ball from the defender, plays it in, goal. Runners around him. It's just literally that simple, lads. And I just don't understand how we've not seen any of this from Newcastle playing with Nick. The wingers are fucking miles away from him. Now here's Nick drifting out wide. And you remember, like, I've pointed out in games before where Nick picks the ball up in these sort of positions against a PSG. He's got no one around him. There's no one moving up to support him in the pitch. He's isolated. Again, not the case here. This lad breaks from the middle, something Newcastle don't do nearly enough, and Nick threads the ball in through, goal. Actually, no one scored that, but it was a great chance. I'm getting a bit carried away. And later in the same game, his strike partner actually feeds the ball here through to Nick Woltemade, sends him in behind. He takes it in, scores. So it's not even just about the midfielders, it's about the other striker or number 10 who plays off of Nick, can also be the one to feed him. We're so disjointed at Newcastle. That never happens. You know, there is no one. Our wingers, I said it in the last episode, 81 appearances it was, 3 assists. I think that's up to 4 after 82 now. Wow. And another great example is to just look at what he does for Germany. Here he is on the last shoulder, breaking into the box. His man's going to send the ball through, back of the net, goal. And I think it's good to show these kind of goals because there's a narrative like, oh, he's not a number 9, he's not a number 9. He's literally been a number 9 in every fucking game he's fucking had success in Germany. But he's had support. And just because he's good at dribbling with the ball, people think he's a number 10. He's not, man. He's never been a number 10. He can drop deep and he can play a little bit, yeah, and a little bit like Harry Kane can. But what he's best at is that. It just doesn't look like he is because we're playing him so isolated as a Chris Wood type striker. Well, that's just not who he is. But that does not mean he's not a striker. I think this is a really good example of what Germany do fantastically well that we don't do well, is having multiple options when you do get the ball in these positions. Yes, against Spurs, we did have that a little bit. It was Spurs. Generally speaking, we very rarely touch the ball inside the box, let alone have a fucking shot. And that's how Nick is so isolated and so he struggles so much to get those opportunities. Whereas with Germany here, they've got 1, 2, 3 other players other than Nick Woltemade for the back line to worry about. And what's funny is, I think it was Sane plays it here, and he intercepts it, even though the ball was meant for Woltemade, and he's fucking raging, yeah. But Nick doesn't sit and complain. He breaks into the box and asks him to thread the ball through. And because this defence hasn't just got only Nick Woltemade to worry about, which is what it's like at Newcastle, he gets on the end of it, slips it in, 2 goals in the same game. And I just feel like, has Eddie watched any of this before you've spent 60 odd million on this kid? Because if you had, you'd know that you're playing completely the opposite of what works for him. And I can't help but think it's because you're scared of overcommitting men, of playing too attacking, which is the style that Nick would suit. And instead, you want to play a lad up front who can't score on a regular basis, which has been proven. He won goal in open play in a fucking year, but gives you more cover defensively. And that's the way you're picking your striker right now. And people have the cheek out there to say, Nick Woltemade's not very good. It's like the untapped talent in this kid is huge, all right? If he was playing in a Chelsea system ahead of a Cole Palmer, in a Man United system ahead of a Bruno Fernandes, and he had these runners like an Mbumo, like what Man United have with Cunha, who running around him, he'd be fucking destroying it right now. But we just punt it long. Go on then, mate. Good luck with that. Do it yourself. And wonder why it doesn't work. And so often in the press conferences, well, why do you think was wrong with Nick Woltemade's form? And they put it on Nick Woltemade, and Eddie goes, well, he's just going to have to figure out a solution himself, I'm afraid. Well, how about you figure out the fucking solution? I can't believe I'm getting annoyed after a win. I can't help it though, because this has been going on for months and I feel like we have the answer to scoring more goals. We're just not facilitating it. Giving Woltemade to Eddie Howe was like giving Dennis Bergkamp the big Sam Allardyce, man. Give him no service and no help and wonder, why is it not clicking? And unfortunately, we're now playing him as a number 10, which he's fucking not, and he's having to drive the ball from deep and never get a shot on. We need to just get him more shots in the box, man. It's not rocket science. And it looks like Eddie's given up on him, which is even more criminal. You spend that much of the club's money and you're giving up on him the way you are now. Disgrace. And when he was brought on for the dying minutes, 5 minutes from the end, I was just like, God, imagine you're going to be leading the line for Germany in the World Cup and you're getting the junk minutes being subbed on for a winger up front. We're destroying him. We're actually ruining him. And I hate to say this because I want him to play for Newcastle for as long as we can keep him. But the reality is, I think the only way to save Nick Woltemade's career right now is to get him the fuck away from Eddie Howe, as far away from him as possible, and give him a new club. And we're going to have to do that because he's too much of a talent. He could be ripping it up right now and we just haven't got a clue what we're doing with him. And I think one day people will look back on this and go, what, like they do with the Elliot Anderson thing that Eddie just gets a free pass on, and go, what a mistake that was. Well, yeah, it's happening again. And Eddie went over to the fans in the end of the game and gave them a bit of that. And I think there's a lot of emotion in that, right? And I understand. He's obviously up against it. We know it's been bad. And it's nice for him to have that moment with the fans. I don't hate the guy. I actually love him. I think he's a fucking lovely bloke. As much as he frustrates the living hell out of me as a person, I think he's top class. You'll not meet a more respectful, nicer manager. And I'm glad he got that moment. But we are 10th in the league. That was our 3rd away win this season. Let's calm down. You know, there's a lot of people saying that support at the end will silence a few, you know, some of these journalists and that. And I'm like, are you aware of how this season's going, mate? Spurs had like 12 players out injured or something. Like they're pretty much the worst team in the league right now. Like that doesn't silence anything yet. And it's about now taking this and building momentum from it and hopefully learning a few things, which I don't think has happened. Like this whole, has Eddie found the solution? I absolutely don't think that's happened. And I'm going to need to say a lot more before I believe it. But let's see. Fingers fucking crossed. I'm still hoping. I still want Eddie to turn it around. There's going to be a lot more data needed. You know what I mean? Let us know what you thought anyway in the comments below. Hit the like button. Subscribe to The Kickoff. I'll see you on the next one.